Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. Well, today was Wednesday, of course, and you know what that means.
Hump Day!
It is Party Leader Day in the House of Commons. And when Pierre and Justin are in the House, question period is always entertaining. Today, Pierre went after Justin on his record on housing. And of course, Justin fired back, only he didn't do a very good job. He did repeat the lie that Pierre only built 6 affordable housing units. Pierre corrected him and said, no, it was closer to 200,000. But what do they mean as far as building affordable housing? Well, according to Justin, that would be the government actually building the houses. And maybe that's what Pierre did during his time as the housing minister. But the truth is, it is the government's job to make it affordable for people to build affordable housing and to purchase it and to live in it. He pointed out that rent was around $900 a month back in 2015. It has more than doubled. And when I looked at the stats for Vancouver, it's gone up by 155% since 2018. So the last 6 years has seen some dramatic increases, at least in the city of Vancouver, which is arguably the most expensive rental economy in North America. And as usual, Justin blamed the Conservatives who haven't been in power for the last 9 years and who haven't been responsible for letting in millions of refugees and other migrants who may or may not be here legally. Trudeau, true to form, criticized Pierre for his policy of setting the economy up to run well and then getting out of people's way. He doesn't seem to realize that his policies of big government is what is driving up inflation. And I don't think that he really cares that inflation is going through the roof. But in a recent interview in Halifax, he did admit that governmental deficit spending is driving inflation, which is probably the first time ever I've heard him mention that. And then he went on to praise how much his government is spending on these programs, a lot of which aren't necessary, because if he got out of people's way, people would be able to provide for themselves. I put together a clip here, which I'm going to roll right away, of what I thought was the most interesting of the moments in the House today. I've cut out some of the repetitive stuff, but the substance and the meaning of the dialogue and the exchange is correct. So take a look at this clip, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
The Prime Minister has had a revelation. In an interview with the Halifax Chronicle-Herald, he told how he responded to people asking for him to spend even more government money. And he said, and I quote, "As soon as you do that, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount." Oh. Right? Oh. Right. Why didn't I think of that? My goodness. Spending money you don't have actually causes inflation. In the middle of having epiphanies, has he also realized that budgets don't balance themselves?
Speaker, the Conservative Party has been using that approach about concerns on inflation to stand against things like national food programs for kids or dental care for seniors. They have stood and objected against and even campaigned against dental care for seniors over the past many months. But we've delivered to over 100,000 seniors of the 2 million who've already registered for dental care the support that they hadn't gotten in years or even decades. But he stands against it with some made-up excuse around inflation when delivering services delivers for Canadians.
He calls his own words a made-up excuse, Mr. Speaker. You can't make this stuff up.
That is exactly why, over the past years, we've been focused on bringing down inflation.
Going out of your mind. You're slowly and systematically being driven out of your mind.
By supporting Canadians, and it is working. For the past 4 months, Mr. Speaker, inflation has been down in the Bank of Canada target range, while we continue to increase supports for Canadians that do not add to inflation, but add to Canadians' well-beings as they're making ends meet. That's what we stand for, Mr. Speaker.
He finally, for once, thought about monetary policy. He said, as soon as you spend more, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount. Right. And he is right for once. But repeating the same costly promises that he has already broken does not change that fundamental monetary rule. So will the Prime Minister acknowledge that, yes, the economy is about numbers, that people pay their rent in numbers, their gas in numbers, their groceries in numbers, and that the numbers are too high?
Fundamental difference in perspective between the Conservatives and this Liberal government. The macroeconomic situation of Canada is one of the best in the G7, one of the best in the world. And the independent credit rating agencies continue to give us AAA scores. The federal government is doing well, but Canadians need support. So we are choosing to deliver supports to Canadians with this solid fiscal position. Mr. Speaker, we criticize rightly the Leader of the Opposition, who, when he was housing minister, only built 6 affordable homes for Canadians across the country. But it is understandable, Mr. Speaker, because he was part of a government that took the federal government out of the building of affordable housing. They chose that the federal government had nothing to do with housing across the country.
And I'll be blunt as well. Housing isn't a primary federal responsibility.
That's why for 10 years of non-involvement of the federal government, that leaves echoes. We've stepped up and invested in communities, invested in partnerships. We're getting the homes built. We're delivering for Canadians.
Sure. Housing costs have doubled since he became Prime Minister. They were half when I was housing minister. Housing costs have gone up 40% faster than wages, a bigger gap than in any other G7 country. Why? Because he's building bureaucracy and not homes.
Mr. Speaker, just like when he was housing minister, his solution is to do less to help Canadians, to invest less in supporting municipalities as they build housing, to get out of the way and leave Canadians to fend for themselves. That is his political philosophy. It is a political philosophy. It's just not the one that supports Canadians.
Not a chance. That's what the president of the Residential Construction Council said when asked if this Prime Minister would keep his promise to build 3.9 million homes by 2031. So let's hear it from the Prime Minister. To reach that target, he'd have to build 550,000 homes per year. So yes or no, will the Prime Minister hit the target of 550,000 homes this year? Yes or no?
We have a broad range of initiatives that are delivering on housing, like topping up the Housing Accelerator Fund with $400 million, a new $6 billion Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund to help communities build. We're leveraging transit funding to build more homes. We're launching a housing design catalog. We're incentivizing more skilled trade workers.
He's announcing a catalog, everybody. Your rent is doubled, but hey, you've got a brand new catalog. Mr. Speaker, the question was, will he build 550,000 new homes, yes or no?
As you can see, Trudeau once had the idea that housing and building housing isn't the primary function of the federal government. But since he has destroyed the economy and has allowed an influx of migrants into the country, well, he has now taken on the housing issue. And of course, he wants to build over 500,000 houses every year until 2031. For a country our size, that is just impossible. You may have noticed that I did insert a clip from the movie Gaslight, the 1944 version with Ingrid Bergman, which is the more popular of the two versions. And I put beside some of Trudeau's more obvious inaccuracies a clip from that movie showing a gaslight that is actually dimming. If you want to know more about the significance of gaslighting, let me know in the comments and maybe I'll make a video about that. But I think you get the idea. As you can see from that clip, Pierre had some pretty good zingers, but as far as a battle of wits goes, he's kind of fighting an unarmed opponent. With all of his tax and spend initiatives, it's clear to me that Trudeau wants to move us more towards communism, and he wants to get there fairly quickly. I think that's his plan. I think that's the plan of the WEF. Unless something drastic happens, I can see us being a communist country before the next decade. And I know a lot of people already refer to us as a communist country. I'm not saying that we're not socialist. We definitely are. I would say we're more fascist than communist at the moment because the government controls everything. But we're moving towards communism at a very rapid pace, and we need to stop that. The free market is the only way to keep prices down. People will spend what they can afford to spend, and when they aren't spending money, prices regulate themselves in a free market. I know the communist Jagmeet Singh wants you to believe that it's big corporation greed that's driving the prices up, but it's not. It's government spending. It's the government trying to make you reliant on them. And for the most part, it's working because they're driving up prices. And I believe this has to stop. Certainly Singh and Trudeau don't truly care about Canadians, and they don't care about the future of Canada because they're really spending us into oblivion. If you want to have your say about it, I encourage you to put comments down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Civil discourse is always welcome. But also, in the description and in the pinned comment, there is a link to a petition that will urge the Governor-General, Mary Simon, to do her job, dissolve Parliament, and call an early election. I know a lot of you will say that won't work, it'll never work, and I do agree it's more symbolic than anything. However, all petitions are, and it is one of the few ways we have to keep the pressure on the government, which I think is very important. And you never know, if we get enough support, it may just do the job. So go to that petition and sign it. So that's my opinion, and as I said before, I would love to hear what you have to say down in the comments below. Civil discourse is always welcome. While you're down there, please hit the like button, share with your friends and on social media, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.